information that they are working with. LAPD had been tracking the suspect for a short time through the Topanga area and has now re-engaged this suspect, especially once he slowed down there. They saw an opportunity to try and get him off the road. They're looking for any opportunity to pit that suspect or possibly even set up for a spike strip if the opportunity presents itself. But right now, as you can see, a little bit too busy on these surface streets as he comes westbound now on Satakoy off of Brothel Road, just west of Tampa Avenue, now going in the opposite direction. So he's actually made some loops through the San Fernando Valley, now heading back in the westbound direction. And you can see that cruiser coming up along that left rear fender looking for any possibility or to basically spin the suspect out of control. This is just a little bit too narrow of a street here, but you see just how close he's getting here, guys. Yeah, that weapon is definitely coming into play into their decision-making as they decide whether to pursue this or whether to let him go. Again, for a time, they were tracking him, but they are definitely intent on getting him off the road, knowing that he is armed and wanted for assault with a deadly weapon. Now coming out onto Winnetka Avenue, and we'll see how the behavior behind the wheel changes here. Again, a lot of unknowns here. We do not know if there's anybody else besides the driver inside of that vehicle. You can see the windows are kind of tinted there, difficult to see through that driver's side window. Again, once they pull up behind him, he has shown signs of really stepping on that gas pedal. However, that vehicle is not extremely capable of very fast speeds, does not accelerate terribly fast, but certainly fast enough to exceed the speed limit and certainly fast enough to do some damage if anybody gets in the way of that vehicle. And as you mentioned, there are people out and about on this Tuesday afternoon, and you can see just the traffic here on these surface streets is proving to be an issue here. So he is continuing to find gaps. He's continuing to accelerate away from LAPD when they pull up right behind him, but then he manages to slow down once he puts a little bit of distance between them. At one point, he was really trying to squeeze through on some of the shoulders, going through traffic lights. So he is showing signs of aggressiveness. We certainly do not know what the actual mental capacity is, but we do know that they are suspecting DUI here as one of the charges. So again, doing about the speed limit, maybe a little bit above the speed limit northbound on Winnetka Avenue here. He has done a complete loop here in this part of the valley. He started over in the Topanga division, which is where they started this pursuit, and now he's making his way all the way over here. He's now straddling that double yellow line, oncoming lanes of traffic here, looking for any opportunity to evade those units. Oh, close call, close call. That's right. The airship is continuing to track from above. They are now in tracking mode, as you mentioned. That just means those ground units are going to pull back. They're going to give him a little more breathing room. They have seen behavior behind the wheel that is a little too aggressive for their liking. Again, this all comes down to the decision of the supervisor and the watch commander back at base who is watching this pursuit on television and talking to these units. You can see the airship still right overhead. Those black and whites are not too far behind. So even though they're putting less pressure on him, tracking mode still involves a lot of units and a lot of cooperation to triangulate and be in position if and when he comes to a stop or tries to bail. Maybe he will dump the vehicle and go running for it, or maybe he will give up peacefully. You never know. It always is a game of cat and mouse, and now, just like that, they have given the order to go ahead and re-engage. So just in the last 20 or 30 minutes, this has been in and out of tracking mode and pursuit mode several different times already, and now they are back in pursuit mode, and he certainly is showing signs of trying to desperately get away from those black and whites. Really, you can see that behavior. You can see it visually in the difference behind the way the vehicle's behaving. You can see the way he is behaving differently and starting to speed up once again. Yeah, this is the problem. Now, yeah, well, if there's any opportunity for a spike strip, they have already given the go-ahead for that spike attempt if they see it. However, the speeds here, look at him doing just a moment ago about 70 miles per hour on Winnetka Avenue. Now he's slowing down. Here comes a possible pit attempt, but there is cross traffic here. There is oncoming traffic. This is not the best place for it, but there it goes. A live pit maneuver right there into oncoming lanes of traffic, a textbook pit maneuver with now the suspect and that unit face to face, all three units coming to a stop here, officers with their guns drawn and the driver popping that door open. Let's be very careful here with this shot. We are ready for anything, but if he pulls out any kind of a weapon, we will be zooming out very rapidly. You can see them pointing their guns at that driver, commanding him out of the vehicle after a textbook pit maneuver, activating that inertia switch, and flipping that car 180 degrees in the opposite direction, now ending up on the southbound side of Winnetka Avenue here in Chatsworth, where they are giving that driver very specific commands to step out of that vehicle. Much more reduced. He was doing at least 10 or 20 miles faster than we would normally see, and there was also oncoming traffic on Winnetka Avenue at the time, but they went for it anyways. It was definitely a risky move, but this is the job, right? This is the decision they make, and they are prepared for this termination here. So now we have at least 5 units at the termination of this pursuit. It does not appear as though he is cooperating fully just yet. We can't hear exactly what they're saying. They are likely giving him instructions in multiple languages to coax him out of that vehicle. They have plenty of eyes on him. You can see one of those officers waving away that traffic on the other side of the intersection. They don't want more crossfire risk here. In fact, right now, if you widen out a little bit here, Rob, this is a good example. They have a lot to contend with here. Even though they have the driver stopped, if they are put in a position to use force here, look at the people at this intersection who are now in danger. They can't use force until they can clear this intersection. And right now, they are in the process of getting units at this intersection to shut the street down, and so they can continue this felony stop here at Winnetka and Superior Street. That intersection is posing a lot of collateral damage at this point, so they are not going to do anything rash. They are going to instruct him out of the vehicle. Right now you can see him communicating with the driver. There are hand signals being given. There are less lethal weapons at the ready, and there are handguns at the ready. So they are bringing in more units to shut down that intersection. The driver's side door has popped open. You can see his leg sticking out there, but we have not seen the hands, and that's what they really, there you see his left hand, but we are not seeing really clear indications of him putting his hands up. He is agitated, he is gesturing in their direction. There's a lot of noise down there, there's a lot of helicopter sounds coming from above. You see LAPD's airship right overhead, our helicopter making a lot of noise, sometimes comes into play here, but they are giving him specific instructions that he is not following by my eye. Yeah, unfortunately, the word that we're getting is that he is actually trying to start that car up once again. So he is actually doing the opposite of what they are instructing him to do. So this is a precarious situation. It is the most dangerous part of any police pursuit, the termination here, when you try and execute that stop and bring a suspect or suspects into custody. When they are not complying like this, it becomes something more of a standoff. When he's trying to gas the vehicle face to face with these officers, he's trying to turn the car back on. He is not listening. He's not obeying instructions. And from what we're hearing, it appears that at least one or two of those tires are running flat. Unclear how, whether he did manage to get spiked at some point that we did not see, or whether it went flat some other way. He's now back in the vehicle, bringing his leg back in. You can see that driver's side door now a little bit closed in here as he tries to restart this vehicle. Again, not complying with these cops. Unstable, now putting it into reverse. Do they have the intersection shut down? Rob, still not shut down. Look at this. They have not been able to shut down that intersection. This pursuit may be back on here in just a second. Unbelievable. All that time, I thought for sure they would have somebody in position by now, but look at that. Look at all the damage there that he created during the course of this pursuit on the right side of the vehicle. This is the first time we're seeing the right side of the vehicle. You can see the undercarriage damage there, possibly 2 flat tires as he continues this pursuit now on Superior Street after backing up, getting back in the vehicle, turning it back on, and now pulling it into reverse, and now the pursuit continues once again. A kind of an astonishing sight here after that aggressive and daring pit maneuver, guys. To see this pursuit continuing again is shocking. It's actually shocking, if you ask me. Yeah, he's definitely looks like he's got something in his hand. He appears to be alone in the vehicle. That 5-minute mark is going to come up many times in the after-action debrief of this pursuit. I can guarantee you that. There were 5 full minutes there where they tried to get the suspect out verbally without shutting down that intersection, which in most cases would have been shut down by now. But in any event, they can address that later. The pursuit is back on. We now have 5 black and whites in tow here as he continues this slow speed chase now in Chatsworth, pulling on to Maria Street and Casaba Avenue, just passing Casaba. As he goes over that speed bump at a snail's pace, he understands that the vehicle is not behaving well. Apparently 1 or 2 flat tires, and here comes a second pit attempt, a weak attempt at that. I don't know how he missed that. I don't know what's going on here, guys. This is very unusual to see LAPD in this position, but they have now swapped out primary units, a new unit taking over this pursuit as he continues at a snail's pace through this neighborhood here. Here comes pit attempt number 3. They are committed to getting this guy off the road. They have to now. There's no choice involved. They have to do it safely, though, and that is proving to be a challenge here with now going the wrong way. Now going the wrong way on Mason Avenue, pulling onto Mason Avenue over the median, and now on the correct side, here comes pit attempt number 3. Another pit attempt, a failed attempt at that, and the pursuit continues. This is wild. Every time. Absolutely. But every time they approach him, every time they spook him, whether it's a pit maneuver attempt or just pulling up behind him like this, even if he's not going to attempt the pit maneuver, they're increasing the adrenaline rush in the driver's seat. That's agitating the driver. This has been a game of cat and mouse from the very beginning, and you have to wonder what his ultimate intention is here. Once again, coming to a stop in a parking space. He was trying to communicate with them the first time. There are photos in his hand. He appears to be a very desperate individual who has been spooked this afternoon into running from law enforcement, refusing to pull over for unknown reasons. We do know that he's an assault with a deadly weapon suspect, possibly armed with a knife, and he is believed to possibly be under the influence. He Yeah, you can see a lot of despair just from the body language. You could tell. You kind of get an idea of what's going on here. He now knows the time is up. What he does with these final few seconds of freedom are anybody's guess. But he's got several photographs that he is now flipping through. I mean, they certainly do, Colleen. They certainly do, and it really brings the human aspect into this. Because, you can only imagine, and we'll do our best to find out what the backstory is here. But unfortunately, whatever he's going through does not justify all the lives that he's put in danger this afternoon. And so they're going to have to treat this with kid glove care. There are major crimes involved with this pursuit. They just want to take him into custody as peacefully as possible at this point. We're going to keep an eye on the driver's side. I also want to see if they use this valuable time to shut down the intersection ahead of him. So, Rob, if we could just widen out once again, and we'll get a better look here. This time they have had enough time to shut down the intersection. It's a little bit out of frame there, but the intersection is shut down. In the event he was able to pick up those keys or restart the vehicle, he is not going to get very far this time. He is at Cozy Croft Avenue and Plummer Street. The driver's side door now fully open. He may be preparing to surrender. You can see he is reaching for the door again. They are likely, I'm guessing, going to wait for K-9 to arrive here. They've got less lethal weapons ready. They've got a number of tools at their disposal. But until he shows some more obvious signs of surrender, this is going to remain in a standoff posture for the time being. It could last minutes. It could last much longer. We hope it does not go too much longer than it has to. But for everybody's sake, but canines are going to be a valuable tool in this situation. Right. The problem with that is that when you have somebody who's experiencing a mental crisis, it really becomes unpredictable. It seems docile at this juncture, but it could flip on a dime. And we have seen too many times in the past where a desperate or depressed individual will try and, attempt a suicide by cop or something other than that. There's just too many possibilities, too many open-ended possibilities that they are dealing with, that they have to give him all the time in the world. Time is on their side at this point, especially with the keys being tossed out of the vehicle. But they're not going to approach until he shows those hands. Right now, we can see his hands from this angle, but there's just too much opportunity and too much space between them and him. They don't know what else is in that vehicle. There's a suspicion of a knife, but if he charges at them, everything changes. If he pulls out a different weapon, everything changes. There's just too many unknowns and too many open possibilities. Of course. Yeah, he's got a bottle. It appears to be a water bottle. Not sure what's in the water bottle, but it appears to be a water bottle. Took a few swigs of that, and now looking back at those officers, much less threatening than originally, than our first blush and first glimpse of him. But he is now holding on, clutching onto those photographs as he peers back at those officers who are attempting to negotiate with him and asking him as politely as possible to get out of the vehicle. They're not going to rest easy or change their posture until he steps out of the vehicle and shows both hands, but they have to be breathing a little bit easier just based on the body language. It has really changed just in the last couple of minutes. It seems like he's more resigned to how this is going to end. He understands the consequences to some degree or another, and is kind of in that oh no moment where he realizes that the gig is up. Vox. Yeah, we saw some really daring moves there over the course of this pursuit. In and out of pursuit and tracking mode, we saw several pit maneuver attempts. We saw some very aggressive driving, very erratic driving, putting lots of lives in danger before ending up here in Chatsworth at Superior Street and Lurline Avenue, where he casually pulled into a parking spot along the curb there. The vehicle itself sustaining a fair amount of damage over the course of this pursuit. Two flat tires from what we understand on the right side of the vehicle. Finally, the vehicle showing signs of giving up, the suspect showing signs of giving up, but not without some last-minute drama here at the end of this pursuit. You can see him holding on to some photographs in the last several minutes, looking back and communicating with officers. He was drinking some water. He is believed to be under the influence, however, that's just preliminary information that we're working with, but he did have a water bottle in his hand at one point before coming out of the vehicle. You can see now sitting on the driver's seat with both feet on the ground. He did toss the keys out of the vehicle and is now gesturing at those officers. The good news is they have a much better view of his hands, and that will take some of the pressure off. Certainly, hopefully, he will stand up here and start listening and obeying. Right now, he is not complying with their instructions, and that is really still cause for concern. As peaceful as this situation looks now, we still have to hope for a peaceful resolution because he is still refusing to obey their commands. World News. Driver standing up. Yep. Now showing signs of giving up here, still not raising his hands, but at least he's out of the vehicle. He's on both feet, looking inside the vehicle with his hands by his side. Unclear if there's a language barrier here or not, but they are talking to him, they are communicating with him, and they desperately want to see him put his hands in the air. They are by his side. He is said to be armed with a knife. That was preliminary information that they were working with during this pursuit. Now stepping away from the vehicle, hands on his head, and now it appears he is willing to surrender. Yeah, that's good news all around here. The suspect now proned out, and it does appear that they will be approaching him momentarily. He is crossing his legs, now following all the instructions, a sure sign that he is willing to give up. At this point, they're going to clear the vehicle, make sure there's nobody else in danger, make sure there's no other threat coming from that vehicle, and then they will take him into custody in a matter of seconds here after a tense ending to this dramatic pursuit. You mentioned it, slow speed at times, still reckless at other times, and we saw some daring moves by LAPD during this pursuit with those pit maneuvers in some pretty congested areas. So, you know, each of these chases has their own uniqueness, and this one was no different.